Consider the following table. Which of the following choices represents the same relationship as the given table? In this instance, it is going to be easier for us to go ahead and find our y equals mx plus b equation for our original function, because then we can quickly compare it to a, b, c, and we can actually go ahead and just eliminate d, because this is showing a curvy graph, which is not indicative of a linear function. Anytime you see a graph with a curve in it, like any of these options, sine wave, you can also see curves like this. Anything with a curve is not a linear function and therefore can be immediately eliminated because it will not be covered on this test. Okay, so now let's go ahead and find our slope for our original function. I'll pick these 2 points to use in our y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And let's use the second set of points for our y2 and x2. So we will have 5 over 8 minus our y1 and x1, which I will make the other set of points. 5 minus 3 over 8 minus 6. 5 minus 3 will give us 2, 8 minus 6 will give us 2, and 2 divided by 2 will give us 1. So our m value is equal to 1, and our b value is given to us in the table. It's where x is equal to 0. So our b value is negative 3, and now we can write our equation. Y is equal to 1 times x plus a negative 3. And when we simplify all of this, we'll have y is equal to 1 times x is just x. Adding a negative is the same as subtracting a positive, so we'll just say it's minus 3. So this is our equation, y equals x minus 3. I'm going to go ahead and make some more room, and then we'll look at A, B, and C. Let's take a look at answer choice A. A says y is equivalent to the difference between the value of x and a constant c, where c is equal to negative 3. Difference in math means to subtract, so we have y is equal to the difference between x and c, x minus c, where c is equal to negative 3. And this is really, really important. They are trying to trick you into thinking that this is the correct answer because they want you to write it this way. Y is equal to the difference between x and 3, right? They want you to ignore that negative sign on the 3 or to interpret that negative sign as your subtraction symbol. But we are taking the difference with a negative number. So we need both the subtraction symbol and our negative sign. And when we do that, subtracting a negative is the same as adding a positive. So this is actually y equals x plus 3, and that does not match our original, making A incorrect. Now let's take a look at answer choice B. And before I start plugging in any values, I notice that the relationship between our inputs and outputs is not very proportional. So this may not even be a linear function at all. So let's take a look. If we look at these 2 points here, for 20 to become negative 10, we'd have to multiply by negative 1/2. The rest of this table, if this were a linear function, should have the same relationship of multiplying everything by negative 1/2. That may not be exactly what's happening in the equation, but as far as identifying the relationship, we should still be able to make this work. But however, it doesn't work. Half of 35 would be a decimal, and it definitely wouldn't be 5. Half of 60 is 30, but we need to change the sign. It would need to be negative 30 for this to be consistent. And half of 80 is 40, not 50. And it, again, should be negative because of that negative sign on the 1/2. So if you catch that, then you would be able to eliminate answer choice B right away for not even representing a linear function. But if you don't catch that, we just have to test out one of the pairs in our table. So let's plug in this pair. We'll have negative 13 is equal to x, which is 10 minus 3. 10 minus 3 will give us 7, not negative 13, so we can also eliminate answer choice B that way. Either way, by process of elimination, we find that answer choice C is our correct answer, and at that point you can mark C and move on with the rest of the test, but for the sake of the video, I'll show you exactly why C is correct. For answer choice C, let's start by plotting as many of these points as we can see on the graph. So we will have over 0, down negative 3. That is a point on this graph. So far, so good. Then we have over 2, down negative 1, which is also a point on the graph. Then we'll have over 3.5, up 1/2, which is a point on the graph. And then from this point on, these values 6 and 8 are off screen, so we can't see them, and we will need to make an equation in order to test those values. So we know that our b value of this equation is going to be equal to -3, and we just don't know the slope. There's two different ways you could find that out. One way is to pick 2 points. You could pick your 2 intercepts, so 3, 0, and then 0, -3. And then when you set up your y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, you would have, let's do this point as our y2 and x2, so we'd have 0 over 3 minus -3 over 0. Let me make some room. Subtracting a negative is the same thing as adding a positive, so in our numerator we'll have 0 plus 3 is 3, and 3 minus 0 is 3, which will give us an m value of 1. So we have a slope of 1 and a b value of -3. So now we can write our equation as y is equal to 1x minus 3. Anything times 1 is just itself, so we'd have y is equal to 1 times x is x minus 3, and we would see that our equations do perfectly match, making C our correct answer. The other way that you could have checked for the slope, since they already gave you the y-intercept, is by counting your rise over run. So we could have started at a point and counted up 1 rise, 1 run, to see that our slope is 1 over 1, or just 1. And then you still would have come to the same conclusion, y is equal to mx plus b minus 3. And you would have gotten x minus 3, seen that they're the same, and still been able to mark answer choice C as your correct answer.